Hello, everyone. Daniel Forte here, Associate Manager of Access Control and Control Products. Thanks for joining us today to go over the LiftMaster CAP2D and use cases. You know, this product has many applications we can use it for, and today Rebecca is going to run us through some of those. Couple things, housekeeping. We are recording today's session, so we want to let everyone know right now that it is being recorded. And then also, if we can type our questions through the chat, we'll be monitoring that as we go through. And then at the end, we'll open up mics to go over questions. As mentioned, we have Rebecca Peterson here hosting today. She's the Group Product Manager for Access Controls at LiftMaster. Like we said, going over the CAP2D, a very powerful small device that can be used in a standalone application, or it can be used to add on to existing applications involving their smart video intercoms. From there, I'm going to throw it over to Rebecca.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, CPSG team. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So very excited to kind of walk you through all of the capabilities of our smart two-door controller. And so just to give you a little bit of background about myself, as Daniel mentioned, I'm Rebecca Peterson. I am right now the Group Product Manager for Access Control business here at LiftMaster. So I have an engineering background, but about 10 years ago or so, I really kind of moved over to the dark side, as people like to say. My passion is really around product management, which is really about understanding really customers' needs and problems and driving strategies that are going to bring growth to the business. And that's really what I've been focusing on. When we talk about LiftMaster and access control, there are so many changes that are happening across multiple applications and segments that for LiftMaster, it's really about how do we continue to extend access towards more of the commercial applications in the community focus. So just a little bit about myself, just want to give you there. Now today, what I want to walk you through though, before we get to the actual details of the CAP2D is give you a little bit more background about what we are doing here at LiftMaster in access control, and in particular, our community focus. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the things we're hearing from the customers on end user trends, and then give you a framework of our cloud access solution, because really for our commercial access business, we're really moving towards a cloud-based solution that revolves around our myQ community web portal and our myQ community app. And then we're going to actually focus and dive deep into the actual details of the CAP2D itself. And then I'm going to walk you through some applications and best practices. And then, of course, I want to make sure I leave some time for Q&A. I'm going to rely on both Zach and Daniel to just, if there's questions as I'm going along, you feel free to interrupt me. And if I can answer them on the spot, I will do my best to do that as well. So I want to keep this very open. Feel free to ask questions whenever you may have. Okay, so let's get started. So first, want to talk a little bit about our community focus. So this is really from our perspective, we know that communities are all unique. They all have different needs, and it doesn't matter whether it's a gated community with a lot of residential homes or if it's multi-dwelling buildings such as apartments, condominiums. All of what we're hearing is that they want the ability to be able to manage access and their residents and really provide features for their residents that provide a more modern living experience. So for us at LiftMaster, a lot of our solutions are laddered around how do we provide this across multiple different types of communities. Now, what we hear when we talk about our end users, because that's really what drives our business, is making sure we're providing solutions that our end users really are finding value in. We're really talking about a couple people, right? We're talking about property managers or community managers, HOAs, and residents and the guests of those residents. And themes that we continue to hear are around, okay, I really want to know what's happening at all my communities at one time. I want to be able to add residents, delete residents, change schedules, dynamically, see what's going on at the properties. I want to have provide more security of that community, because the reality of the matter is when you talk about access control systems and the way that, legacy systems have been, credentials are really, the lifeblood of how they're managing access. And there's different ways you can provide that, right? You can provide physical keys, a PIN code, a fob, whatever it may be. And as things have changed in the market, these credentials are really getting questions in terms of their security and their value. And the other big thing from a resident perspective, the biggest thing we hear from them is that I would love the ability to actually know who's at, that control panel before I grant them access. And I would love a more, seamless way to actually manage that access. And by that, it's really about the involvement of moving to a mobile solution. Because the reality of the matter is, I never leave anywhere without my phone. It's kind of tethered to me, right? It's become an extension to us. And it's even more prevalent with, modern, Gen Zers and wires and whatever we're at right now. I don't even know what gen I am, but they all love that phone. So all of our solutions are really laddering about how can we provide more benefits to the property managers around these key issues. And then of course, to the residents and how they're managing their access, but also extending their access to their guests. So as we look at our LiftMaster solution, we understand that communities are complex and different, and they all have different needs. And the one unique thing about LiftMaster is that, we've really been providing access solutions for over 50 years from a home and now transcending into a community focus. So we've got our full line of smart access controls that includes a line of video intercoms, the CAP2D, the door controller, a retrofit hub. So whether it's a front door, a gate, an elevator, common parking garage area, you can have all those integrations. And we communicate with our LiftMaster line of gate operators as well as our GDOs. And we have our, a number of accessories from a credential perspective. So depending on the community needs of how they want to manage access, we have different options for them. So from a property manager perspective, what we're really doing with our myQ community web platform is really providing a means for them to streamline their operations. So it's a cloud-based system. So completely, as long as they can get an internet connection, they can go on this web platform, see all of their communities that they want to be able to manage. They can go ahead and add residents, delete residents on demand. So you don't actually have to physically go to the panel and do updates to the manual database. You don't need a server there to kind of manage all of that information. And with our introduction of our video on our video intercoms, plus just the fact that you can actually trace these credentials, it gives them a little bit more sense of increased safety and security because they can go on these systems and see what's happening. They can see all of those activity events. So now they don't necessarily have to worry about, oh, you know what, when can I fit a meeting, a time to go over that community? I could just go on the web platform, do what I need to do and see what I need to do. And now by providing our app experience, we're able to provide more modern features so that it minimizes the amount of turnover at these communities so they can have a little bit more retention rate. And we provide flexibility in terms of our actual service offerings. So depending on how you want to manage your communities for what they might need today, or maybe in the future as they want to expand, we have the ability to add more hardware as well as more services to continue to enhance that experience. And one thing that I want to bring out, because we're really proud of this, we have done significant improvements to our myQ community web platform. And just about a month ago, we were at ISC West and we did win, just so you know, the new product showcase for best mobile solutions for both the myQ community web platform as well as the app. So the industry is seeing the enhancements that we've done as valuable and just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of that. Now, from a resident perspective, it's all about the app, right? That's the one thing that the market has been asking for and asking LiftMaster for a long time. So we have our myQ community app that allows now residents to have an extension of a credential via a mobile app. So now they can manage all their access points from their actual phone, open them if they want to remotely. They can now have, if you use our video intercom systems, an ability to actually have that peace of mind of saying, I now know who's at that panel before I allow them access. So when the pizza guy is sitting there trying to buzz every door to just let them in, I can see, oh, this is not for me, and I can deny them that access. And now we have guest pass features. So it just allows now a more extension and easier way to extend that access control. So now whether, obviously with the increase in deliveries with COVID, it allows a more seamless access experience in that fashion. Okay. So when we talk about our myQ community web platform, for those of you that don't know our platform, it's really about a management of the people as well as the access points. It allows you, as I mentioned before, the ability to have, all of your residents, users, whatever it may be, maintenance workers, employees, all in one system. You can dynamically add them, you can delete them. It also allows you the ability to create groups and schedules and zones. So let's say, for an example, I happen to have a gym that I only want open between the hours of 6 in the morning and 8 p.m. I can create a schedule and a zone for that so that I can issue those, access points to those residents, and they will be time bound within those schedules. We also have integrations with property management software systems such as RealPage and YARDI. So if you have a community that uses these software systems to manage their resident information, we now have the ability to port over that information so you have one source of truth of that resident information. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of amazing features in here. You have activity events, you have notifications that you can get on a number of different events. Is the door ajar? Has a permission been denied? Is someone using that credential too often? It allows you to have more flexibility of what's happening in that community. And then from the app perspective, and I'm going to go into further details, as I mentioned before, with our video intercom system. So that's our CAP-XLV, our CAP-XM, and we have a smaller one coming out next month. So you'll be hearing from us again in another month when we do that webinar. Now residents have that ability to see that video call from that panel, so I can see who's at the panel and grant them access or deny. We have a press to unlock feature. So if you have multiple access points and you've been given permission, you can actually dynamically open them. And of course, the guest passes and a history event of all of those video and activity events. So what this means from a resident, diving deeper into this press to unlock feature, is that you don't necessarily have to carry your fob around or forget that you have your key. You actually have all of your access points on your main page on the app itself. We have this press to unlock feature that it has a little countdown timer depending on how you want to set it. And when you push down that access point, you actually get a tactile response that lets you know that that access point is opening. So now, you can see on your dashboard if you've got a connection to your gate, elevator, package room, you've got office conference rooms in your large apartment complex or parking garage, you can have all of them there. Sorry, I didn't know these were built. And then we also have the guest pass. So as I mentioned before, no longer are you having to be sitting there waiting at your buzzer in your unit to say, oh, I've got, a party happening and I'm waiting for my guests. You can actually now just issue guest passes. So it allows you more flexibility to manage your friends coming over, or if you've got deliveries, or if you're a property manager and you're going to have work being done at your building, you don't have to be tethered at your actual location. You can actually just issue either a one-time pass or a reoccurring pass. So the one-time pass is nice and convenient because if you're going to have, let's say, a pizza delivery, you decide it's spur of the moment, you can make that time bound within 15 minutes if you want. Only one-time entry, and it'll clear out that credential. Or if you've got, let's say, a dog walker or a cleaning service that happens to come, every day from, let's say, 12 to 2, you could set up a reoccurring pass so that they're able to get access into the system, into the building, at that time frame. Now you can text these out, you can email them to your visitors. And the nice thing about it from the community web platform, that property manager has the ability to see all of that information that's happening. And the latest feature that we just rolled out is really our Siri integration. So for all of those iOS users, if you have, our mobile app and you want to use your earpods, if you have Apple CarPlay, if you have your phone, you could just say, hey, Siri, and watch, my phone's going to go off. Hey, Siri, if I open up the gate, it makes it nice and convenient so that you no longer have to just be tethered to the actual phone itself. You enable those access points saying you want to have Siri talk to them. And it's nice if you have your smartwatch, you have your earpods, nice and convenient. And our latest one that we just are introducing is our integration with our myQ community app. For those of you that have a LiftMaster garage door opener in your home, and you happen to be in a community where you have the myQ community app, we now have the ability to pair that into our myQ community app. So you can be alerted when that access point is open. You can all do it from one mobile phone. So this is coming out within the next week or so. But one of the things that's really flexible about our myQ community app is that we continue to add more features to it. So it just keeps giving and giving and giving. And as we release more features, we of course partner with CPSG to make you aware of all these changes. Is there any questions? I should pause for just a second.
Nothing in the chat. One thing
Okay.
I'd like to point out there, Rebecca, is, on that app also, and it's commonly asked, is you are notified when these guest passes are used, correct?
Correct. So you're told as a resident, you're notified that they've been consumed. And as a property manager, you're going to see all of those activity events of the guest passes. And I will also note that the guest control is managed by that property manager. So if you don't feel comfortable, you could disable it at any point in time. All right, great questions. Okay, so now let's dive into the actual, smart access two-door controller, or the CAP2D. So as Daniel mentioned early on, this CAP2D is I like to call that little hidden gem in our product line, because you can do so much with it for the price point that we offer. So really, it was designed to be really a low-cost solution so that you can actually either use it as a standalone access system. Obviously, you don't have the video controls, but it also allows you to do expanded points of access. So if you do have one of our video intercom systems and you have additional doors that you want to control within the building, but you obviously don't want to run, 500 feet of wiring back to the main controller that's at the front of the building, you can use the CAP2D to add additional doors of control and really manage that cost. Now, it's connected via Ethernet, so it's still, of course, one of our cloud-based solutions, and it all ladders up to our myQ community web platform. So you could still have all your residents managed in there, all the credentials that you need, and of course, the myQ community resident app works with the CAP2D. So when we talk about popular features, as I mentioned earlier, it's really about allowing you to expand your points of access within a community or even a facility. It's very flexible in that sense because it's really allowing you to add any form of credentials, such as Wiegand accessories, such as keypads, readers, or receivers. So it can be its own little standalone mini access system. Now, the device is, mainly cloud connected, but we do have memory on the device itself. So if the internet goes down and you're concerned about, well, how are my residents going to be able to get in? We can store up to 25,000 activity credentials. So, a lot of communities are probably not going to have that many activity events, but once the internet restores, it can pull all that information back up to the cloud. Now, as I mentioned before, from our myQ community web platform, you have a lot of flexibility still with this CAP2D. So you can add your residents, delete your residents. I'm sounding like a broken record, but the whole point of it is the CAP2D allows you to still do all the same features as our main video intercoms. The big thing you're missing is the video piece of it. Now, it's extremely small and compact, so it's really easy to install. So really, when you're doing a job site walk, it's really going to cut down on those costs. And it provides you the flexibility that you can either power it from a power supply, but it also is PoE enabled. So let's talk about the actual technical details of the CAP2D. As I just mentioned, from a power perspective, you can power this device from a standard transformer, 12-volt, power supply, or you can do PoE. It comes by default designed to actually be wired from a transformer, but there is a jumper on the back of the unit, so you just want to toggle that jumper. So if you wanted to use PoE. On the back of the device, we do have a lithium battery on there, and that's really what's kind of helping store all that backup information. Now, from a system capacity, as I mentioned earlier, we can manage up to 25,000 residents on the actual device if the internet goes down, and 6,000 local event history. So let's hope, obviously, your internet's not down for weeks on end. But most cases, when the internet is down, it's just momentary, and all that information will just go back up to the cloud. From a connectivity perspective, it is required by Ethernet only. That's what we provide. So it's got a RJ45 connection in the back. So either you can use dynamic connection or a static IP. And we do recommend a minimum of 1 megabytes of download speed. So, obviously with any cloud device, you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to test the internet speed of your location. And of course, it is UL 294 listed as an access control unit. One thing that I want to make very clear is that LiftMaster really takes importance in making sure that we're designing and testing our devices to the most stringent standards. So UL 294 is just like table stakes for us to make sure that we have that.
Rebecca, we do have two questions in the chat here. First one here, how do you manage elevator controls by floor? I think I can answer that, but I'll let you run with it.
Well, if you guys want to pause that, because I'm going to go into that in a couple slides so we can get to that if you don't mind waiting.
Yeah, no problem. And then the other one does go back a few slides. Does the app work with OK Google as well as Siri currently?
So right now we only have the Siri integration, but our team is continue to work on adding, different, means of Google Play. But for right now, it's just a Siri integration, but we're going to continue to enhance that. Okay, so I'll get to the elevator control question bit. Okay, then actually going into the door control board overview. So this is really where all the wiring and the magic happens. This is where you guys as gurus and your integrator dealer roles are experts in this, right? So our door controller has inputs and outputs. So from an inputs perspective, we have a request to exit. We've got two of them that come standard on the device. So if you wanted to plug in, a free exit loop in there or a push button, you can use that request to exit input on there. And of course, the main functionality behind the device is making sure that you have some sort of Wiegand input. We offer you two. So if you have a reader, a receiver, or a keypad, this is really what's, kind of monitoring, obviously, the credentials and allowing the relays on the device to trigger open the actual access points. From an output, we have two primary relays. So you can control up to 2 doors or 2 gates. So if you want to do a direct gate control, or if you've got a door strike to open up a door, you have that capability with the 2 primary relays. And then we have 2 auxiliary relays. So that can be used for a mag lock if you have another means that you want to do. And they are all single pole, double throw relays on there. So all the ratings are in our manual. Now, from a visible indicator perspective, we do have on the back of the device, as you're actually doing your wiring, we have a little LED that's kind of telling you the heartbeat, that it's actually communicating back up to the cloud. And on the front, we do have a visible indicator to tell you the power is active, the system is active, and the network connectivity status. One thing to note on the Wiegand, I'm not going to go into the basics of Wiegand credentials. We could probably do another webinar on that. But the minimum that we want to make sure when you're connecting this to CAP2D is that you have that data 0, the data 1, and the ground connection. And obviously that you've got power coming from that Wiegand device. So that's pretty much the basics that we need to make sure we have to have the CAP2D function. From an actual mechanical perspective, the device is indoor rated. It's really meant to be kind of a behind the scenes device. So a lot of times they're either going to be in a wire room or off a little bit to the side. And we have a really wide temperature range of -31 to 150 degrees F. It's really small and compact, so it can actually mount to a single, electrical junction box. So nice, easy to wire. It's nice and clean aesthetic on there. So getting to your question about elevator access. So this is something that we just introduced. And really the way that this works, we're using one of the primary relays to wire into the actual elevator control. This is, just to be very clear, not individual floor controls. It's really enabling all of the floors. Really, when we do our research, majority of applications are looking for this application. We're just enabling all of the floors. Individual floor controls is something we're going to look at in the future state as a separate board, but for now we're only enabling all buttons. And what we did add is when you actually go on our myQ community web platform, you now actually have access points that say elevator. So you can name that if you want to call it elevator A, B, elevator front wing, whatever may be. And now our app will show you that as an access point. And when you do a guest pass, you can issue a guest pass that'll go through all these access points, including the elevator itself. So I just want to make that very clear. This is not individual floor control. It is all elevator buttons control. Okay, So this is just giving you a little bit more expanded view of the app experience itself, because now, as mentioned before, you can control this elevator access, right? You can still create a zone or a schedule on that elevator. And it provides you an affordable option to use our CAP2D as a means to control an elevator access point. I hope I answered that question for whoever answered that in. So as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the CAP2D, this is really where we start to talk about making sure that as you're looking at a community focus, you can ask your community, what are they looking to do, right? How do they want to manage access? What are their important points of access? And this is where you can bring the CAP2D into the storyline as an affordable option to say, well, I have a clubhouse I might want to control. I have a pool gate. I have a pet gate. I have a parking garage. You know, you may not want to put a full access video intercom because those things are obviously pretty expensive everywhere. The CAP2D really gives you that flexibility to say, now I can have multiple points of access that I can connect within my community, adding credentials in there, whether it be long range reader, you know, keypads, standard readers, or receivers from our passport remotes if you know our line. And now you can control all of that from our web platform and give app access for those access points. And the one thing I always like to say to people is think about asking your community, well, you know, what are you looking to do today, but what might you want to be doing in the future? Because the CAP2D is very flexible to give you that expansion as they say, well, now we're going to add condos. Now we're going to add more homes. We're going to, you know, expand out. You can start thinking through about, well, I know how I'm going to address that in the future. Okay. So once again, let's not just think about the elevator scenario. The CAP2D can be used in many different applications within the building. So think about a package room where you might want to add a keypad or a reader and still give that guest access for maybe, you know, the delivery person. Maybe you have the post office worker that you want them to deliver that in there. You can now give that mobile app extension if you want, or of course, give your residents that PIN code access and the mobile app access. Or think about the pool room. We have a number of applications where we have the CAP2Ds installed with our KPR 2000, where they're literally having access to those pool room areas, and you can control it by a schedule. It provides you a little bit more of that sense of security as well. Or you can talk about a parking garage structure where you might want to have a long range reader with tags in there to control that access, leveraging the CAP2D. I think I just saw another question pop up.
You did. So is how can I keep track of individual valets opening gates to park cars?
Well, okay, let me make sure I understand the question here. Do you mean the user, the valet driver?
No, probably I would assume this is the manager, and there's actually multiple ways. It probably depends on how they have access to the system, but the main thing would be through the cloud platform, right? We have an activity log, and we can, you know, give them an individual credential, whether it's an app credential that they're using or a hard card or remote control. We can keep track, and we have ways to filter and search through there, kind of based off the number of the credential or the individual. Those sort of ways. The other way would be if you were the manager and you had given the valets, you know, access through the app, which I've had happen on, you know, for employees in office building applications. You also have history in that app, right, that you can keep track of them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about that is that you control that. So you could dynamically remove them. Let's say if you've got valets that are turning over every 6 months, you add those users in there, you delete them, you have history of all the credentials. So it's extremely flexible, and it just depends on the type of credential format you're wishing to issue them, a physical one or the mobile app or both. Okay, so this is just want to talk about now use cases. So this is just an example, and there's multiple examples. And Daniel, I'm going to ask you to contribute because obviously, you know, CPSG, you know, is probably, you know, has more experience from what they're selling there, but this was a really unique one. So Lamarco Systems is one of our key, you know, integrators here in the Chicagoland area. So LiftMaster is based out of Oak Brook, Illinois. So if any of you have ever been there, it's just about 30 miles east of the city. And there's this large multifamily building. It's got over 450 residents. They've got one of our CAP-XLVs in the front entrance, so our Smart Video Intercom L, and they have 25 CAP2Ds in this building. So they're using them to manage their game room access, mail room, fitness center, party room. And when we talk to Marco Systems on that property, the thing that they mentioned the most is that what they really loved about it is that it was extremely affordable for them to manage this cloud-based system and manage the tenants, but create the schedules and zones. And once we added the PMS integration, it made this so much easier for them because they don't have to manually enter these 450 residents. It allowed them to port over that information. So it's really saving them a lot of time while also bringing an extremely modern experience to their residents with the myQ community app. So this is just one application that I wanted to spotlight. Another one is, we had in the storage space area in the actual basement of this building, they have storage lockers in there. So, think about other applications. I think sometimes with the CAP2D, we tend to think a lot about the perimeter, but there's so many doors of access that you may want to control. So you might have a storage area in the basement. You might have a boiler room that you want to give access to your maintenance workers or to some service providers like the gas company or whatever it may be. There's endless possibilities because when you start really looking at a building, there's so many doors of access that you may want to control. But Daniel, I don't know if you wanted to give another example because I think you had some good ones last week when we talked.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've seen this thing used as just your basic access controller, right? Card access. One thing I like to call out that I don't think we've mentioned is we do have two-factor capabilities when used with the KPR 2000. So we could have PIN and card situation applications for more secure environments. One that we use that I think is unique has been, and not super unique, but we've used this as a 365-day timer on many applications where we're not even truly using the access side of it, the cards or the app for that matter, but we're using it as a 365-day timer where the end user didn't want to have to go on site and change times or program holidays. End of the day, they were paying service fees to get people out there, and even including the monthly fee, this ended up being a cost savings for them to add a 365-day timer to their application.
Thank you for that, Daniel. Let's see, I think there might be another question. Oh, okay, no problem. So I want to spend I'm sorry, I forgot my flow, I changed it. But one thing just to kind of show everyone, because I'm sure you're wondering, well, how much does this cost? What can you do? One thing to note is that we really have a full line of smart access solutions. So we have our smart video intercom. So if you're not familiar with us, we had our flagship product, just the CAP-XLV. We introduced our medium-sized one, the smart video intercom M, last fall, and we have our smallest one coming out in about a month. So look out for another webinar in probably about a month or so where we're going to come back here and we're going to go through all the details of the smart video intercom S. Now, there's just a difference in the ways that do the doors of controls and, of course, the actual number of resident capacity because it's meant for different applications. Of course, we have the CAP2D here, and we also have a retrofit solution for a smart access hub. I did a webinar on that last year, and I think probably want to do a refresher on that. But one thing to note on the CAP2D, when we talk about affordability, list price is $1,500, $1,499. So you can do so much with this device, control 2 doors, control 2 gates, for $1,599. And mind you, that's list. So obviously you're going to be buying it through CPSG, you're going to get your pricing or whatever you may be. Now from the actual service pricing, because I do want to make everyone clear, our devices do have a cloud fee to manage the myQ community web platform and of course the app license. We really have 2 scenarios. If you just want the CAP2D, let's say you don't have a video intercom, we charge per access point, really per the relay. So you have starting out at $13 list price for that first access point. Dealers get a 30% discount at $9.10. The app licenses are $1 a piece. So just $1, you have all of those features, as I mentioned before, the press to unlock, the guest passes and the history events. Now, if you pair it as part of our video intercom solution, we still charge you per access point, but it just depends on how many access points. So our video intercoms have different doors of control. So depending on how many access points, you're going to see the prices here reflected. Now, when we have our larger video intercoms, the CAP-XLV and CAP-XM, that does include 30 mobile app license by default. And then you can add additional licenses for $1 a piece. Now, we also now when you have the video intercoms, I do want to point out that those do require a VoIP fee because they do rely on our backbone of our SIP to manage both the phone call as well as the video call. And that's all integrated with our myQ web platform billing. So it's all one bill that you get for your VoIP fee. And if you want additional 30 days of video storage, that's an extra service fee of $15 a month. But just to let you know, there's different pricing platforms depending on, once again, what are your community needs and how you want to use our hardware. Okay, so now I want to spend like the last, I would say about 10 minutes going over some best practices, because these are things that as we've obviously launched our CAP2D has been out in the market for quite some time, we run into some problems. And so I just want to make sure that we share what we recommend to all of our dealers and our installers on the CAP2D to make sure you have success. Always, of course, I think making sure you have proper tools. And obviously, like I think a multimeter, screwdrivers are just table stakes and obviously wire strippers. But if there's two tools that I think you really should consider adding to your tool belt, it's a POE tester. So if you're choosing to use POE, it's great for you to just diagnose whether you've got, enough voltage there, and a network tester, because these are, obviously devices that require the internet. It's always great to have network testers if you need one. And if you need recommendations on certain models, let me know. I can put some in the chat afterwards, or I'm sure CPSG can offer some recommendations. The other big thing is on the power. So this is important. When you are going to figure out you're going to use the CAP2D, you have to make sure you select what voltage you're going to use. Are you going to use a power supply, or are you going to use PoE? Make sure that that jumper is set in the right position, or you might have a problem. We've learned this the hard way. We've had to educate people. So just want to make sure that people are understanding that, make that selection properly on the back of that device. Now, going into more of the credential setup, because this comes up every once in a while. This goes back to the actual Wiegand inputs. Sometimes people see the green on the reader port and they think it's a ground. It's not. It's meant for the green LED connection to your Wiegand device. And I just want to point that out because it's happened before where we got inquiries and people think that you're actually wiring a ground connection, and that's not what it is.
Yeah, that's actually a really common one to have a call on. So I like that you're calling it out there, Rebecca.
Yeah. And just so you know, all these practices, tips and tricks we have on our website as well. So don't think like if you didn't listen to this and capture this, we're going to have this available for you. The other big thing is when it comes to mag locks, this is something that can happen. Try to prevent that kickback voltage. We do include in our CAP2D some MOVs. Those are in essence, diode suppressions. We include 4 of them for a reason. I would strongly suggest that you use those to kind of prevent that kickback voltage. Okay. Other thing is on, this is an example where you can actually use the relay configured to a wet contact. So this allows you, if you wanted to create an isolation circuit, you can do that. And we have a troubleshooting guide on our website that can walk you through all of that. Or if you need more information on that, just let me know and I can make sure I get that to the CPSG team. This is another big important piece, is to make sure that you're following the recommendations of the Wiegand type of wiring that Wiegand manufacturer is recommending. They should be providing some guidance, but if they do not, we recommend a minimum of 20 gauge wire and make sure that you have sufficient conductors in there to provide that shield. Another big thing on this, you don't really want to have extremely long runs from the CAP2D to your Wiegand device. We recommend don't go more than 100 feet. If you need to do more than that, I have a solution for you on the next slide. The other big thing is that if you are familiar with our passport receiver with the CAP2D, a lot of times we tend to get some challenges with people making that connection. And we always guide you to do a proper site walk, because you'd be surprised on things that can cause RF interference that is causing that blocking of that radio receiver to happen. So this could be, look out for Yagi antennas, as power transformers can cause this. or you could have a faulty power supply. So these are things to look out for. So maybe you can try to self-diagnose before you call, of course, CPSG or tech support. But of course, our team is always there to kind of help you troubleshoot these scenarios. Okay. The other big thing is that making sure that you are using patch cables when connecting to a switch router. This is just an example of, and it's also in our troubleshooting guide that walks you through the proper patch configurations for your actual CAT connections. Here's some great tools. You know, from an Ethernet connection perspective, we do recommend a limitation about 295 feet. If you need to go further than that, there are some amazing solutions out in the market. CPSG offers these as well. If you need to extend your Ethernet connection, Ubiquiti has some great solutions out there that our devices are fully compatible with. Or if you need to extend your WeGAN, as I mentioned earlier before, SureFi also makes an amazing WeGAN wireless bridge that we highly recommend. And then the other thing too to know on our device, if you, we do have an admin port tool in there. So there is a USB connector on the back of our device where if you plug it in, you have the ability to actually troubleshoot the CAP2D. You don't have to go from the cloud on there. You can restart the CAP2D. You can actually look at the system logs to see if it gives you any insight of what might be happening. That's where you would actually set up the static IP, and it gives you some basic network information in there. But we have an entire installer support website if you're not familiar. And I think we're going to send this deck out, so hopefully the link will work, that has a number of articles. You know, obviously you can see all of our how-to videos, all of the wiring diagrams, and any information that I kind of shared with you today on that website. It's a great resource tool that I would highly suggest you bookmark. But of course, we're also going to share this deck. At least I know I'm going to send this deck to CPSG so you can have. Okay. So I hope that helped you out from best practices. And really, you know, Daniel, I just wanted you to maybe share some of the services that you offer to help support our dealer base.
Yeah, so here in the access control department, we've designed the CP service dealer access services. We actually have 3 packages, base, advanced, and premier. So base, I kind of call it, let's set you up for success and get you going. Training for the dealer, setting up your site, some over the phone bench testing with you, all the way to the premier, where we'll be on site with you kind of supervising, making sure the install goes great, and commissioning with the end user. Advanced is really the one where we get involved with the end user and provide some trainings and things like that, and bench test the equipment at CPSG before we ship it out. I'm a big advocate of bench testing these products before we taking it out there to the field to know, you know, whether we're dealing with site related issues or hardware related issues. I can spend an hour talking about these services. We just want to make you guys aware of them. And if you have any questions on them or want to know more about them, please reach out to us at Control Products, your local branch, connectivity at CPSG, if you want to get directly to myself and my team, and go from there.
Okay. Well, oh, I lost my cursor here. Okay, well, that's all I had. I want, here's my contact information. I like friends. So if you want to email me, you have more questions, you want to learn more about our other solutions, do not ever hesitate to contact me. But I wanted to open up the time because I know we've got about 15 minutes or so for any additional Q&A if you want to open up the mics or if there's still more in the chat.
I'll just make a comment, Rebecca. I think every time we do one of these, I learn something new, especially when it comes to the app development. Super excited about having the ability to add residential garage door to the app. That's amazing. I think we're seeing a major evolution in access control, you know, especially on a gated community where historically, visitors drove up, scanned through a directory, found who they wanted to talk to, hit call, hoped they answered, then let them through. And that's really becoming what we're seeing, a kind of a thing of the past, right? I mean, people are sending out guest passes, and it's increasing the throughput of those gated communities significantly. Or, you know, they're getting to those gates and calling their contact, and that contact is allowing them through an app. So we're seeing a pretty major evolution there, and I think it's going to continue. So really good job developing that app. I mean, that's really putting more power in the hands of the resident. I guess that's another evolution that we've seen, where historically it's been the property manager that's handling all the access. And are you finding that these property managers really don't want to handle all that access, and that residents really want to take control of access for guests and deliveries?
Yeah, Zach, I think you bring up a great question. So one of the things, and I think I did this in a past webinar when we were talking about CapXM, is one thing we hear a lot from our property managers is that they are trying to always balance this, security and convenience. And they are comfortable with extending the access. And this is where the app and the guest feature has really evolved. COVID, I think, has extremely propagated that, because, there were so many restrictions on not wanting to have a lot of employees at these communities or in these MDUs. And they needed a way to allow the residents to kind of manage the guests, and especially the deliveries. We've seen such significant growth in, grocery deliveries, food deliveries, package deliveries. And it's really made a significant propagation, I would say, of a faster evolution to this app adoption in this market space that has probably been long coming for a long time. And there's so many things that are continue to change in access control. Property managers want more flexibility. You see now virtual tours that are happening. They want to manage their day-to-day tasks while not always having to be on site to worry about, I'm letting the Amazon guy in for the 15th time because there's so many different delivery drivers coming in. So yeah, really great insights. And I will have to say, on our app, we continue to do market research. We continue to gain insights on what they're wanting. So expect more from not just our app, but our actual hardware, the features, as well as the actual myQ web platform. We are constantly doing research to say, how can we continue to make the experience even better?
Yeah, no, and to piggyback off what Zach said there, it's kind of amazing from day one working with the CAP2D product or the original CapXL to just see the improvements and the enhancements. And one of the things I like to call out when dealing with the product line, other than the addition of video to the intercoms, was when these new features come out, it doesn't require new hardware, right? It's just firmware updates and things of that nature. So, it's the initial hardware and you get the added features as you guys layer them on. So it's awesome to see the evolution of this. Is the CAP2D available today for purchase?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's available now. It's actually a product that's been out there for a number of years, and CPSG, stocks these regularly. So if you need a CAP2D, we'll take the order right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, good call out though, Daniel, right? There's been some supply chain disruption, so it's always good to understand what's available and when. Another feature that I do like about CAP2D when paired up with the KPR2000 keypad is when you program an entry code, you do have the ability to put it in as an entry code. Sounds a little odd, but sometimes with Wiegand keypads, you're forced to use a device number for that code, which may or may not, depending on the system, require a 5-digit code, for instance, where you still have that flexibility of a PIN, right, with the KPR2000.
That's correct, Zach. And I think one of the things that we're planning on is in probably over the summertime, we wanted to do an entire webinar coming to you on our full accessory product line. I mean, we do have the KPR2000, we have our KPW5, our Passport remote. Sherry Johnson, who's our senior product manager, really our radio expert when it comes to accessories, is going to be coming to you sometime over the summer and give you a full detailed breakdown on all the features of our accessories that I think many people are unaware of. And it's a great way to continue to extend and educate our market on those capabilities.
So we did just receive a question in the chat. It's kind of 2 questions, and it's anti-passback would be the first question, and then can you daisy chain the 2D?
So anti-passback is an interesting, we don't have, I would say, true anti-passback capability. That is something that we're looking to do. It's really more of a configuration with our myQ community web platform to kind of give you that, not allowing someone to use that same credential with the same time frame. Mainly used in, I would say, more secure applications such as warehouses, facilities, higher end, but that is something we're looking to fully develop out true anti-passback. Can you daisy chain these? That's a good question. I might have to confirm that. Typically they're wired independently, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Yeah. So the daisy chaining, the answer would be no. We're not going from panel to panel. We're bringing network or, Ethernet connection to each individual device, right? So I've done some jobs where we're landing them all in the same closet. And what we're doing is we're putting in, depending on CAP2Ds, a switch, a PoE switch, and, just connecting each one to their own individual port. And that's kind of the beauty of the product is you don't have to connect any panels back to each other. I can place one on one side of the property and the other on the other side of the property. They don't even have to be on the same network. They just need to be connected to the internet. They could be on completely different networks. Just had a question. Are there supply chain issues? Yeah, there's still supply chain issues going on, I think, all across the world, right? So.
Yeah, and it is. Every manufacturer that is designing any sort of electronic device has been facing that for the last 2 years. There's unfortunately, I don't see that getting resolved in the short term, and especially as we see increased COVID cases in different parts of the country where most of the chips are manufactured in China, Asia. We're going to continue to face them. One thing I will tell you with LiftMaster is that we try to do our best to make sure we're managing ahead of it and ordering as much inventory as we can to stay ahead, but it doesn't mean that we haven't faced them as well. But every manufacturer that I'm aware of in this space is in the same boat.
All right. I don't see any more questions. Great job, Rebecca. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and educate us about the use cases of CAP2Ds. Anyone has any questions, you could follow up. You have Rebecca's information here. As I said, you could always reach out to connectivity@controlledproducts.com with any questions and go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks all.